Welcome back to the Dividend Diplomats YouTube channel, everybody. Lanny, Burke, the Dividend Diplomats. We are very excited, to talk to you about the big dividend news that AT&T finally released to the general public.
Before we do, make sure everybody smashes that subscribe button. We finally have crossed well over 12,000 on the way to 20,000 subscribers. Smash that like button. Hit it right now. We're about to dive in to the what once was the beloved dividend income stock, but now could be arguably one of the most hated stocks of all time.
Yeah, I guess if this were WWE, you could definitely say that AT&T turned heel last year when they went from the darling of the dividend investing community to turning their back on the beloved heroes of the dividend investors, and suddenly are the bad guys. Them and Razor Ramon are sitting there as the bad guys.
Hey, yo. So, guys, if you didn't check the news, AT&T stock just put out big news that all the shareholders were waiting for during the morning on, of course, the first of the month, February 1st.
Yeah, and let's all level set here for a second, because this wasn't a surprise per se. Last year, AT&T announced the major news. They were going to spin off Warner Media, and Warner Media was going to merge with Discovery to form a streaming giant to compete with Netflix, with Amazon Prime, with all the Disney Plus, all the big names out there. With that, several weeks after the announcement, it answered a big question. What was going to happen to AT&T's dividend? So management started to slowly rip the Band-Aid off their arm there and say, once the final details emerge from this, there is going to be a dividend cut. There's going to be a dividend reduction. It just took 8 or 9 months to figure out what that dividend reduction was going to be. So we've kind of eased into this one. We knew our income was about to decrease. And finally today, as you said, Lanny, on February 1st, AT&T put some certainty and allowed us to start figuring out how exactly our income is going to be projected.
So good old John Stanky, that stanky leg, really went in on the discussion on what was going to happen, what type of spinoff, because there was actually conversation about doing a split off versus a spinoff. So there was quite a few different ways that they could have done it. Ultimately, they're still doing what we expected them to do. We were who we thought they were. So,
I think that football reference is starting to get a little dated here. I mean, that was a long time ago.
They were who we thought they were. So AT&T holders, to start going through the headlines, if you own AT&T shares, each share you own is equal to 0.24. So essentially, every 4 shares of AT&T you own, you will get a 1 share of the new ticker symbol that's going to be WBD. Not to get confused with RVD, Rob Van Dam.
Yeah, and with that, the AT&T current shareholders after the spinoff are going to own 71% of the combined entity. So they're still going to be majority shareholders in this new tech giant. And that is big news there. And a lot of different things were discussed with this thing. Obviously, what this is going to do is it's going to allow AT&T, what's remaining for the company, to focus substantial investment on building up the wireless network, building up their internet capabilities. They're rolling out fiber everywhere now. They are investing substantial amounts of money. You can start to feel the effect. You start seeing the news releases there. It's truly exciting there for what AT&T is about to do. Now, with that, though, Lanny, the big piece that fell from that was obviously the dividend. The dividend. What is going to happen with the dividend after this split? So, Lanny, why don't you tell us the news? Why don't you lay out the big reveal? What is going to be our dividend going forward?
Well, before we do, make sure everybody does hit the like button, smash the subscribe button. No, honestly, For a quick frame of reference, I own about 275 shares in my taxable account. So I'll end up with about 65 to 66 shares at that 0.24 rate of Warnermedia-Discovery. Now, to answer the next question from Bert, what is AT&T doing with their dividend? Well, it came pretty much spot on to where we were estimating back at our prior videos of what the forward dividend income was going to look like. We were using about a 52 to 54% of what their current dividend is, and that's kind of where we ended up. We knew it was going to be less than 60% of the dividend of where it's at, but greater than 40%. So it actually fell into that perfect payout ratio. But their dividend is actually getting reduced or right-sized down to 27.75 cents per share per quarter, or $1.11 per year. And Bert, how does that compare right now to the current dividend that we're used to seeing? And what does that mean from a dividend yield standpoint?
Yeah, so their current dividend is $2.08 per share. I mean, we love companies that are in the perfect payout ratio, as you said. We just like when they get there, not by cutting your dividend, but by growing your earnings to see that payout ratio go down. What that's going to do is that's going to put their forward dividend yield much more in line with Verizon, their arch nemesis or arch competitor there in the wireless sector. Their new dividend yield based on the close price is going to be 4.5%, which is still very strong for the sector. But why people liked AT&T over the years compared to its competitors was they're better than competition dividend yield. Everyone loved the 6% dividend yield that AT&T typically paid. Then when the price fell, it was over 7%. It was even up to 8% after their price kept tumbling. So that's what always set AT&T apart. They were a dividend aristocrat. They increased that dividend by a penny for each quarter every single year. You could typically rely on that until this news happened. So now it's much more in line with the industry competition, which is why some investors have been running for the hills for AT&T.
You know, for another frame of reference, because I own 275 shares, that decrease in the dividend reduced my forward income by $267 when rounded. Obviously, that's slightly offset by the latest increase from UPS, ticker symbol UPS, of 49%, but still doesn't make it up from that.
My wife and I own a combined 240 shares for AT&T. So it is what it is. We knew this was coming.
Yeah, and guys, so your dividend is going to be reduced. You will get, again, for every 4 shares of AT&T you have, which is the equivalent of about $100. For every $100 you own of AT&T, you're going to get 1 share of Warnermedia-Discovery, WMD. Now, so there's still value that's coming off of that. You're still going to own another asset, another streaming giant, because Bert, in the latest earnings release from AT&T, what's the subscriber base look like for HBO Max?
Yeah, it was some very positive news for HBO Max. It was great. They added over $13 million subscribers in 2021, and now their base subscription worldwide is over 73 million. They're upward revising their forecast too for streaming. So now they're expecting significant growth going into 2025, probably right around doubling that subscription growth. So, I mean, there are some great things that are coming out of the streaming service. And you got to remember something too about HBO Max. This is a relatively new streaming service. It isn't as if this has been around for a decade plus like Netflix, where you have this massive base and you're rolling out a new feature. They just spun up HBO Max and they couldn't have done it at a better time right before the pandemic. So the entity you're going to be getting is going to have a strong subscriber base, great content, and allow it to compete with those streaming giants. That's what's going to be exciting about this new company that you are getting.
Right. And I know that there's tens of millions of subscribers from Warner or from Discovery Plus. So combined, they're going to have a pretty significant, call it almost 100 million subscribers, which really starts to compete with, the large players out there. We all know them: Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus.
And on top of it, too, the earnings release also touted strong wireless growth, strong internet growth. So the core business of what you are going to be retaining with AT&T are seeing some great numbers, some great strides there. So it painted a pretty rosy picture from the earnings release. And I think it's just going to take getting out from this mess of acquisitions over the years that's going to really help provide clarity and allow the two companies to focus on their core operations and kind of go their separate ways. It's kind of been nice to not have to think about what's happening with DirectTV since they finished that spinoff several months ago too. So that's been out of sight, out of mind. Let's get one more thing out of sight, out of mind, and then focus on the core operations.
Yep. And, one thing that Bert may have touched on but didn't go into too deep is, they're expected to get about $43 billion, in I guess in proceeds from this transaction. So they're going to use that $40 billion to delever, their balance sheet, aka reducing the debt load. So what that may allow AT&T to do is to be able to react and invest quicker than their biggest competitor, Big Red Verizon. So they're trying to become a more efficient and leaner telecom in a very highly levered space. So, kudos to AT&T. I mean, guys, if you're an AT&T shareholder, this hasn't been a pleasant road over the last 2 to 4 years. And, you have to ask yourself as a shareholder, do you think this is going to work for the core now for AT&T going forward?
And that's why it's such a hot button stock, like you mentioned at the beginning of the video. It brings out a lot of the emotions in people because you have a lot of people that are saying throw the management team out when they spin the company off and start over. You're having some people that are clapping and saying they're doing the right thing, they're moving forward. And I think it's just going to come down to the results over the next few years. You're going to see, can they execute on this vision? And did this cleanup of previous heavy debt-filled acquisitions work? That's the probably $1 billion question here for T.
I would expect AT&T, it'd be kind of nice to have a clean company without all this hoopla with, again, DirectTV, with Warnermedia, with all of this junk. And now you can just really focus on the core. So I do look forward to what, AT&T can actually do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think with a target payout ratio of 40%, that's what it's reported that management's shooting for right out of the gate here with this AT&T, like you said, Lanny. Perfect payout ratio once they spin off and everything's complete. I think a lower dividend will help further those investments. It'll help reduce the debt, like you mentioned. I think, to your point, it's going to be good to clear out the noise and focus on the core business.
And it's, again, we haven't received an increase from AT&T now for 2 years. Obviously, we knew this was coming, but you probably know that AT&T will now grow that dividend, probably starting in 2023. So at a 40% dividend payout ratio, if they continue to grow their net subscription base on their phones and internet fiber plans, increases will resume.
So what's it going to be? 2048 once AT&T reclaims that dividend aristocrat status. We'll take the dentures out and pop them in the glass of water right next to us while we're recording videos talking about AT&T becoming an aristocrat once again.
Guys, I mean, we will be pushing into the close to 60 if they make it to aristocrat status. But, so, to kind of give you a quick few metrics, Bert just said they'll probably have a 40% payout ratio. That's not necessarily, again, think about this, the payout ratio is going to be at 40%, but your dividend, is representing about 54% of the current dividend. So you're going to get about 27.75 cents per share per quarter going from AT&T. Again, for every 4 shares of AT&T, you're going to own 1 share of WB Discovery. WBD, it just doesn't really roll yet. Hopefully we'll get there. The PE ratio is still low, below 9. Again, stock price has already had this kind of baked in, so you don't really see I'm sorry, actually surprised there was that much price movement. I don't know about you, Bert.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know why people were surprised about this announcement. Maybe I don't know what they were expecting that was any different because, again, they've been talking about this for a while. They've mentioned what the target payout ratio is going to be. Maybe it was just finally the decision of is it spun off? Is it going to be a spin off or a split off? And maybe
Or
maybe
off a dead man tombstone.
no, exactly. So yeah, I'm shocked. It's back down below 25. It was above. We had a little bit of time above 25, but you know what? We know the acquisition is going to close here in the second quarter, reportedly. So it's going to be done soon. So we can move on, get past this, and just keep on going with our lives and focusing on seeing our income grow once again after the setback.
You know, just a few weeks ago, it was actually trading at almost $28 per share, I believe, about 3 weeks ago. And this was after the ex-dividend date for the upcoming quarterly dividend payment that we just received on the 1st. So, you know, it's funny. So this is all after that. And, you know, you would have thought that this is already baked in. We've known about this for a year now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very interesting to see the stock price drop. You guys remember the stock price dropped down to the 22 range about 3 months ago. So we'll see if we actually end up hitting that. I don't expect that to happen. I don't know about you, Bert.
No, I'm with you on that one.
So Bert, that's the big AT&T stock news. What are you currently doing? Because all the investors out there want to know.
I mean, I've hung in there this long. There's no sense in turning back now. I mean, again, I've been on the more optimistic side with AT&T throughout this. Am I annoyed that our income's getting cut and we got to this point? Sure. I don't think anybody wants to see their dividend cut by 53%, like you were saying, Lenny. Nobody's enjoying that, but I'm excited for what the future is going to hold. I like the combined entity long ago. I like the split up version of this too. I mean, I guess maybe I might just have rose colored glasses, but you know what? Why not? Why not focus on the fun part of AT&T going forward? What about you, Lanny? What are you thinking?
I'm still in it. I'm riding it. You know, I'm not going to say like the Cleveland fans, I ride with 6, but I'm here riding with AT&T. I want to see what Warnermedia-Discovery ultimately can become. You know, again, you've got the Viacom CBS, you've got the Comcast, you've got plenty of other streaming platforms that pay a dividend. So I'm curious what they may do in a few years if I still hold Warnermedia-Discovery. Further, one thing to think about is they could also be an acquisition target.
Now, wouldn't that be funny? Wouldn't that be ironic if the Warner-Media-Discovery gets acquired shortly after this?
By Verizon. No.
Well, that would be great. So obviously everybody, I mean, this has been a little bit more of a discussion-based video here, just talking about the news, getting our thoughts and kind of breaking down what happened with AT&T. So, you know what? Let's continue this discussion in the comment section below. Let us know what you think about AT&T, your thoughts. Are you buying, holding, selling now that we know the news? What are your thoughts on this company going forward and on their journey to become a dividend aristocrat in 25 years?
Who else was playing the song? I hold on.
And if you haven't already, everybody, on that note, subscribe to our channel. Give us that thumbs up. Thank you, everybody. We'll keep updating you with AT&T, not just AT&T, but all dividend news out there too, because it's an exciting time to be a dividend investor. As you mentioned earlier, Lanny, UPS, how do you not feel great about that? And what the 10 other dividend increases that were announced last week that we just talked about, plus all the other ones we didn't feature in that video. It's a great time to be a dividend growth investor.
Exactly, guys. We appreciate it. Again, for every 4 shares, you'll own 1 of Warnermedia-Discovery, 27.75 cents per share per quarter, or $1.11 in dividends per year with AT&T going forward. That was Bert, and this is Lanny from the Dividend Diplomats. Over and out.